Welcome to Silent Service. My name is Will. I hope you're doing well. You are on for episode 8, which is what no one told me about growing up. We're going to be chatting with Matt and having a wonderful time. So let's get into it.
Totally kidding.
Yeah, I do tend to goof up from time to time, but the
I
beautiful thing
did
is
goof up. You want
we
to see
all
what I
do.
goofed up on real quick?
Sure.
So you'll kind of laugh when you see this, and I don't think it's quite funny, but I goofed. Do you recognize this?
Is it the coin? No.
No, my Gasparilla room key.
Oh! Oh, you forgot.
Oops. Yep. Oops. It's sitting in my hand right now. It was in my backpack. So I knew we got two keys and I could only find one. And I thought, for a second that one of the kids may have really liked it, and like snagged it. But no, they said they didn't. I believed them. And, then I thought it was my wife who lost it. Meanwhile, I'm the culprit. So it was me.
Jeez
Now
Louise.
I emailed them this morning and I was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I found an extra key. Like, can I mail this back to you? Please don't charge me $500 for it. I'll happily mail it back to you."
Yeah.
And I've not heard a response yet.
Huh.
How are you doing? How's the weekend?
I'm doing well, Matt. I had a really nice weekend. I actually got a chance to go up to Ponce Inlet, if you've heard of that.
No, never.
Ponce,
Pond Inlet? Like pawn shop inlet?
Ponce,
Oh,
Ponce.
Ponce. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. It's like a
Like
tiny,
Ponce de Leon.
yeah, Ponce de Leon. It's like a small surf town, like 45 minutes northwest of Orlando. And
Okay.
so my friend Kaylee lives up there. So she invited a whole bunch of us to just go hang out. And we chilled on the beach and was able to get back Saturday evening to start celebrating my stepdad, which leads me
Wonderful.
into how was
Father's
your
Day.
papa's day?
It was good. It was great. The trip was excellent. It would have been nice if we had stayed over one extra day just for, Father's Day to make it a little bit extra special. But it was a great day. Got in a lot of family time. So no complaints there. I loved Boca Grande. Had never been there before. It was a really special place. Old Florida. I don't know how else to describe it. It was really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, for the listener, Matt went a little family vacation for the last couple of days this past weekend, and I was all excited because he had never been before, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna go and already be planning your next trip." Was I right or was I off?
You were absolutely right. We got
Oh,
back yesterday around 1 o'clock, and like my wife and I both looked at each other and we're like, "How is that only an hour away?" And we had
right,
never heard of this before, and it's
right,
almost like you're, in a way, like you're put over in Key West, even though it's only an hour away. It just feels so different. Yeah, it was just a unique trip, and we were there for a YPO family retreat, so we were surrounded by wonderful people, lots and lots of children, 90 to be specific, 90 children, 80 total members. So it was an awesome time. I'm thoroughly looking forward to going back.
yeah. I I saw in the news that a poor, I believe Rich told you, but a poor girl was involved
Yeah,
in
I
in
told
a
Rich it happened
oh,
there a day before we checked in. So I had no idea that Boca Grande was one of like the shark capitals of the world this time of year. I guess due to all like the tarpon, being in and around there. So it was an unfortunate young 9-year-old was out snorkeling with her family and was attacked by a shark. But fortunately, I guess she's made nearly a full recovery. So some of the members that I was around spoke to the surgeon that actually, performed the surgery, the emergency surgery on her hand, and all thumbs were pointed up. So I think she's going to experience a full recovery. So fantastic,
wow, yeah, I heard they airlifted her to Tampa and were able to put her,
incredible, really like
yeah,
remarkable, actually,
yeah,
remarkable how quickly something like that can just happen.
yeah. For the listener, you're welcome to let me know in the comments. I don't know whether I was in the right or the wrong for this, but I was going to tell you, Matt, about that, but then I didn't want you to get scared about your own kids, and maybe I should have looking back, but you already knew about it,
Well,
so
yeah, a lot of it was buzzing quite quite that spread like wildfire very, very quickly on
yeah,
I think it was Thursday afternoon when all of us found out, and this happened around noon on Wednesday last week. So yeah, unfortunate. But let's check in on MEPS.
yeah,
Let's get into mental, emotion, physical, spiritual. How you
yeah.
doing? How you feeling?
I'm doing well. I'm mentally feeling stimulated. I'm in my closet and I love this
Let's go.
closet. Uh, for the listener, I used to spend a lot of time in this space and I took a little bit of a breather from it for the last couple of weeks, and being away from it has made me realize how much I actually like it, which might be a
So let's
little bit
give some
odd.
context because if you could see Will right now, it does look like that he is in a closet.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit, well, I guess it depends on the type of closet you have at your home, but it's around the size and shape of like an actual closet. But the general concept behind the room that Will is in, it was actually designed to be a phone booth. So we have a business where we have a lot of people on the phone, and sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable being on the phone with a prospect when it's completely silent and other people can hear you. So we developed and built in what we call phone booths that are more of like a soundproof type box that enables someone to go in for a conference call, a Zoom call, or hey, a podcast, Will.
Yeah. Yes,
So
indeed.
that's where Will is when he says closet. He's in our little soundproof phone booth.
Right. And the reason I've been saying closet is shout out to Alex Hermosi. He was the one in the
Yes.
video he said closet. And I was like, oh, I like that. Um,
Yes.
but no, thanks for asking, Matt. Mentally, I'm feeling stimulated. Emotionally, I'm feeling joyful. I am. Physically, I'm feeling sunburned for sure. I didn't
Me
reapply.
too.
I
The two of us together.
I just
Two
thought that
tomatoes.
one would be enough. You should see my back. It really does look like a ripe tomato.
Mm,
Um,
no pat
but
on the back for you today.
yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'd just prefer maybe
We'll
around
refrain.
here or something.
That's funny.
Yeah, so aloe
And
vera has been my
and spiritually,
yeah, spiritually full, full as
good,
always.
good,
Yeah, for
good.
sure. Jesus call in the
I'm
morning, daily stoic as well.
I'm glad
Fantastic.
you're full because I'll actually start with the spiritual side. I'm actually feeling a little bit behind because I committed a cardinal sin, Will. I forgot my Jesus Calling book when I went on the trip. So there were numerous occasions where I wanted to text you and be like, bro, will you text me the page from this morning?
Bro.
But I didn't. So I looked them up online. So I was able to find them.
Oh yeah,
But
you can yeah.
yeah, I did. I looked them up online, but I was bummed. I was like, "Oh man, I don't have my book. Now I'm going to be behind." So, I was feeling a little bit behind.
Yeah.
But mentally I'm feeling rejuvenated, after a trip with great people, and some of these people have, incredible successful accomplishments in business. So it was just great being able to hear about other people's personal and professional wins. I think that's something that I'd like to do with you, Will, more frequently is to just talk about personal and professional wins.
Mhm.
And what I really liked most is so that's how they start all of our board meetings. So, like the Florida YPO board starts by covering one personal and one professional win. And it's great because everyone just has to stop for a moment and think back, right? To like what has gone really well over the last, in this circumstance, it was 30 days since we met last. So it's like, what's that professional win? Where's that personal win over the last 30 days? I just love looking for the good things, that happen in our lives
Yeah.
because the chaos of day to day so frequently, we're just busy. Like we're not present. We're not in the now. We don't spend a lot of time reflecting. So I really enjoyed that. But mentally feeling rejuvenated, emotionally I'm at ease. Physical, I'm feeling ready. I'm ready to go, and I'm catching up spiritually. So I'm glad you're so full. You'll be able to pour over into my life. So thanks, Will.
Amen. Yeah. That's totally okay. I'm feeling calm as a result of feeling spiritually full.
Let's
And
go. So
um
what's on the mind today? Like what's the topic? What are we talking about?
Matt, because you've accomplished so much in your life and because you're constantly around people who have also accomplished such wonderful things in your life, I would love to take a moment and just, if it's okay with you, chat about what it is you truly wish you knew when you were my age. I'm 24, right? You got about a decade on me,
A lot.
and and I was thinking we could boil it down to maybe five things. I have
Okay.
some ideas, although I'm relatively new to my career. I have some ideas of what I wish I knew, a couple years back, but I think you would be a better spokesperson in this regard.
Sure. Yeah, I'm
So
happy to get into it with you. Hopefully there may be some common myths that may need to be debunked or some unspoken truths that we need to highlight here.
yeah,
This will be fun. Let's get into it.
yeah. I mean, the first thing that I think about, or what I was thinking about in preparation for our episode today, which is obviously, what, what did you wish you knew when you grew up? Um, and my stepdad came to me a few weeks back and he said, "Will, if you could do anything in the world for a career, what would you want to do?" I said, "I'd like to be a quarterback in the NFL." And then next morning he came and told you that. And he said, "Will, do you have any idea how much travel that entails? Like you could go play for one team and then the next morning you're on a flight to Buffalo from Miami. Like, do you think that would be," you said it in a real nice way, but don't you think
I
that
remember that
would be
conversation.
emotionally taxing on your relationships? And I just remember, I think I walked away shortly after that, but I stood around and just like looked at the wall for a second because I was like, just a couple of words for the listener, and Matt kind of debunked what I had always wanted.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, no,
I didn't mean to
no.
like pop your balloon. You're making it
No,
seem like I just bursted your bubble.
no, it was profoundly important for me to hear that. And apologies if I made it seem like it was bad. No, it was absolutely what I needed to hear in that moment and made me want to work even harder with what I get to currently do now. And it made me also not to wish I was somewhere else, on a
Hmm.
field somewhere, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Yeah, like I know you're not asking for a lesson in this or a summary, so apologies for hijacking this, but the unspoken truth here is the grass will always be greener. And so frequently, you have no idea what is on the other side until you get into it. And there are these different, components or complexities, that one has to understand with whatever field that they're in. And, with professional sports does come being traded and
yeah,
not having, I guess you could call it independence or being like truly a sovereign individual where you're able to control like the day to day of your life. So, like at the end of the day, a professional sports athlete like is a W-2 employee,
this is
right? Like when you
true.
think about it, right? Like they
Mhm.
do have a boss, they do have to report somewhere, they have to be at practice on a specific time. If they're late, they'll be fined. Like it's funny because I was really close with a bunch of NBA players while I was in college, topic for another day. And even inside of their contracts, like they're not authorized to ride a skateboard, rollerblade, be on a Vespa or a motorcycle, as an example. So you have limitations in terms of like how you can live your life. And to the point that I brought up to you, because I watched it happen, I watched one of my great friends be traded. And literally within a week, he had to clear out his entire apartment. He was gone. It's like, we maintain a friendship, but literally a week later, he was gone. Like one of my good friends was just gone and he
Yeah,
had no control over it. None, zero. Granted, making a phenomenal living, financially set for life. But it goes back to like money's not everything, right? So, like, let me ask you this question because I love these hypotheticals, right? It's like if you were paid $50 million this one year, but you had to give up, the next 5 years of your life and live in Antarctica, like, would you do it for that 50 million? Like, would you do it?
to live in our Antarctica for the next 5 years.
Because, like, in a way, it's somewhat similar. I guess on the other side, you're like, yeah, but, I love what I do when I play the game. I love getting on the field. I love sweating with my brothers. I love, being in front of 50,000, fans that are live and then the millions of people watching at home. Like, I get that. I understand that. But to have all of that, where you're loving life, living in Cleveland, Ohio, and then boom, again, next day, you're now living in Los Angeles, where you don't have your friends, your family, your network, right? Just like there's pros and cons to almost everything in life. And
Totally.
so frequently, when we're looking at something, we have these rose-colored shades on, and we're only looking for the positives.
Yeah.
We're not taking into consideration the negatives that are associated with this particular opportunity.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like so frequently we just go surface level.
Yeah.
Surface level with everything. Surface level with relationships, surface levels with topics, with like careers, with what do I want to do in life? It's like dig deep. This is your
Yeah.
life we're talking about. Dig
Yeah.
deep.
Right. And it's kind of you're speaking on the future really, but it's kind of the same in the past, I would argue, right? If you think about a memory from, let's say, a couple of years ago that you didn't necessarily love, but you don't remember all the negatives. You kind of remember a few good moments that were like, oh, I actually wouldn't mind
Yeah.
doing that again. You
Yep.
know?
Yeah. And a lot of times I forget about all the bad, that's associated with something.
Yeah, I wonder why
I
that
forget about
is.
the bad.
Huh.
It's funny, one of my mentors remembers names like so vividly. He's so good with names. But if he had a bad experience with the individual, he cannot remember their name for the life of him. So it's wild that he's got like this uncanny ability to forget the bad things that happen like in his life. Like
I
it's truly remarkable. It's like I
I
want that gift. I
I
want that
want
skill.
that. I want that. Oh my
I know, I
gosh.
want it too, but I
That
guess he
sounds
just,
amazing.
it's just it's the gift God gave him, right?
Yeah, yeah. What the heck?
I know,
Man, oh
really
man.
cool.
One truth that came to mind, or comes to mind right here with you, Matt, is this idea that I call it you will grieve who you used to be. And the reason I say that is because, you know, at one point in our lives we have this small circle of friends. And that small circle of friends may stay consistent. But as the years go, you might have a few people kind of naturally move on from that circle. And that's totally okay. I think I if I could go back just a couple of years and maybe you feel the same way, I would tell myself to really cherish the people that are currently within, my life, my daily life, because I have no idea if they're going to be there in just a couple of years because people naturally tend to go where, especially in the context of college, people naturally
Sure,
tend to go to Seattle or LA, wherever their job is at. So and that's why I think it makes sense as we were talking about last episode, your circle just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's
sure.
totally okay that this
Right?
happens. It's like the natural progression of life, you
It
know?
most certainly is. Yeah. Yeah. So would you say it was you will grieve? Wait, how do you phrase it? You will grieve who
You will
you were,
grieve,
or how'd you say it?
yeah, you will grieve who you used to be, is sort of the main frame that I'm using.
Yeah, it hits me in, two fronts. One is like the personal and the other's more like familial, more as like a father, just because of like how quickly, my kids are growing up and, as all these memories from photos and videos, coming on my phone, all the time to be able to see that, it
Yeah,
definitely does make me stop for a moment. And like I do grieve and crave, those moments that we experienced together in the past. It's just so, full of love and being so present. But when it comes to more on the professional side, like my identity or my relationships or acquaintances, as an example, I don't know that I necessarily grieve who I, like once was from that context. I think it's more about, I guess I'm just like really hard on myself. And if there was any grief, it would be more related to who I was back then, who like I'm not proud of today, if that makes sense. Like growing up, I was a very selfish individual. So like it was always, me, me, me. What can I do to, get me ahead? What can I do to be able to get, the financial security that I'm after? And I definitely took like an incredibly selfish approach to life. And in hindsight, like didn't need to do that. And in fact, would be much, 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 much further ahead, had I had an individual just sit me down, and explain how damaging, that characteristic trait of being selfish or greedy, would have long term. So I know it's probably not like, the answer that you were looking for, but when you say like you'll grieve who you used to be, it's more like, yeah, I grieve, the the me that I wasn't proud of, if
that's
like in a weird way. So like I know that's probably not what you were looking for, but I can only relate to me and that's what I relate with.
it's up to interpretation, really, But that's just so fascinating to me because it's so obvious that you've done a complete 180 flip, right? You just, I mean, the fact that you're doing this and our intent is to give any kind of proceeds that Silent Service makes to charity.
Of
Maybe your
course,
former
right?
self wouldn't even be a thought. Like,
Yeah, never, never in a million years. And, I guess it's easier to say, right, when someone gains a level of wealth and they, become a philanthropist and they start giving money away. Obviously, it's someone easier, who's coming from, more of like a broke mindset, who doesn't have financial resources to be like, oh yeah, easy for you to say, right? Easy for you to give money away. You have it. So like, yeah, easy for you to say this. And that may very well be a part of us. I'm not just sitting here saying like I know all the answers, right? I'm not a psychologist. There's a lot of different chemical imbalances and makeup, the human body physiologically and so forth that I just don't know about. But I think everyone just kind of has to experience that for themselves, to be a greedy and selfish person and then, be someone who's a little bit more generous, sharing, caring, and loving, and
Yeah,
just watch what happens, and
right.
then let your own results, speak for themselves, and then, you evolve as a person.
Yeah. That what you just said right there is so important because um like when it comes to growing up, there is no learning by reading necessarily. You just have to take action and go through the trials and the tribulations. Like
For sure. Yeah. And
I I I, I want to have kids deeply bad. I would love to be a dad someday. In fact, that is just one of my overarching goals for my life. Um, but there have been moments where I'm like, do I really want a child of my own to deal with whatever I'm going through as a teenager or something? And I'm like, not really, but they'll have to. So
right.
it is what it
Right.
is. So
Yeah, yeah. So true. So yeah, that's just an interesting question, the way that you bring it up, when you think about the past, losing some relationships that you perhaps have outgrown, I think that they all served me for a purpose. Again, I don't regret them. I don't regret not having them. I
yeah.
don't necessarily grieve that it doesn't exist anymore. It's just
Hmm.
more like, oh, like that was such a fun period of time in my life. Again, it served me at that moment. Not
Yeah.
good, not bad. It just was, and great. It was a fun time.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah. And then another truth I've been thinking about too is this idea that closure is a myth. I've stumbled across a few people that are always looking for closure, but what they don't necessarily realize is that when you seek this closure, you're also seeking to control other people. Like, give me what I want, tell me what I want to hear. But you never will.
That's
So,
fascinating. Yeah, when you think about closure requiring two parties, it's not like I can gain this by like an individualistic action, right? To where like I close the book, right? Like me, I close it. Like I can control whether I close that or not.
yeah,
To
yeah,
your point, right when you're seeking closure, it's like I am forcing my will upon you to get you to do what I want you to do. Why? So I can gain, peace.
right,
It's like,
right,
okay, yeah, when you say it like that, it does come across, as a little, a little wild, a little ridiculous. But, I guess stated differently, closure, again, like it just depends on the context. Like what are we talking about? I especially love the context in business, closure in terms of like burning a bridge, where like Napoleon Hill states, you always want to burn a bridge. So it leaves you with no way to return to the past. It leaves you with no ability to go back to the ways that were once, So it's like, in his mindset, like as like it's burn the boats. Like I don't know if you've ever heard that quote, right? Like there's
yeah,
no turning back, right?
right,
So like you want to burn a bridge because you should always be moving forward. You should always be pushing forward, upward mobility. So to leave something in your past behind you with the door still half open, right, isn't going to serve you. It's
yeah,
effectively a plan B, plan C. It's like, nope, take that out of your pocket, rip it up, throw it away because you got
yeah,
to be focused.
yeah,
So when it comes to like closure, again, in the context of business, I don't think closure is a myth. I think closure is necessary in terms of burning the boats or, burning a bridge. And that's probably not conventional
well, no, it makes sense.
advice.
It makes me think back to a Founders episode I listened to on Saturday with James Ivine. Maybe you saw it
With
posted.
Apple, the Apple designer. Is that who that is? Or am I
No,
mixing up names?
he was a producer. He worked with Dr.
Okay. Yeah,
Dre and all these
I'm thinking
crazy
of a
people.
different person.
But somebody asked him in an interview, what do you think you could have done better? You're already a billionaire. But he was like, I don't know. I cut off the rearview mirrors a long time ago, and I couldn't tell you what I
Yes.
could do better.
I
And I
love
was
that.
like,
And
whoa.
think about that though. But wait, but this brings up like an amazing analogy. I don't know who it was who said this. Maybe I actually think it was Grant Cardone. I'm
Oh,
not a big like Grant follower. I like Grant. I like what he's built. He's an incredible human being. His content and his message isn't necessarily for me. Again, not saying it's good, not bad, just it's not directly, related to who I am.
mm,
Nonetheless, many years ago, he said, think about when you're driving a vehicle, think about the size of the windshield and think about how small the rearview mirror is. And he said, that's the amount of time that you should be focused forward on the future versus looking backwards in the past. So think about the proportion, right? The percentage that the rearview mirror represents of your windshield. What would
yeah.
you say, 5%? If that, maybe
Yeah,
not even like three,
roughly, yeah.
4%, something like that. So like how much time are you dwelling on the past? Right? It kind of goes back to your question of like, does one need closure?
Hmm.
Right? It's like, why are you still focused on the past
Right,
when 97% of our focus should be on the future? When you just
right.
think about a windshield and a rearview mirror. I just found it fascinating that you just referenced that because
That
I
is
have thought about that quite a bit in the past.
that is fascinating. Now I'm wondering if I think about the past too much. So, Matt, I haven't told you this, but I'm the type that if I like a song, I will listen to that song 50 times and
Until you
it'll
kill it.
until I can't listen to it anymore. So it's just two
Yeah.
songs, really.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
that's it.
Two
In the
song well.
gym, maybe six songs tops, again and again and again and again. That's
You're
it.
still doing music in the gym and not podcasts or audiobooks or
I
YouTube videos or anything like that?
well, here's the thing, Matt. Excuse me.
No, you do whatever you want. I'm not saying you need to. It was just a question.
No, no. So our last episode was phenomenal for me because again, flipped the routine, figured out what I was doing wrong. But the music thing, I first 2.5, 3 months, of knowing you, only podcast, only audiobooks here and there, but mainly podcasts in the gym. And then I understood that you were listening to Young Dolph or whoever it may be in the gym, and I was like, shoot, I guess music's okay. And then so I've just been listening to Gunna and stuff like that in the gym instead.
It's getting you pumped up. Your lifts are probably a little bit better, right?
Yeah,
A
yeah,
little bit better than podcast because I feel the same from time to time when I go back and forth.
right.
I'm not like, incredibly strict. Again, if I want to have some fun, I'll have some fun. But for the type of workouts that I do, and I know this wasn't like our topic today at all, so apologies for getting off track here. But Will, I love like CrossFit style workouts. It's like I have a
Hmm.
full CrossFit gym in my house. My whole garage is like a CrossFit box. So I usually have two different segments for my workouts. I have one that's strength focus, which is typically like the first half hour, segment. And then the second half hour segment is very heavy, intense, like metabolic conditioning, like
Hmm.
hit like to the max. It's very difficult for me to focus on content while I'm in that second segment of hit. So on occasion, I'll move over to music or something that's much more upbeat, maybe house music, maybe it's Young Dolph, maybe it's Gunna, right? Rap, hip hop, something like that that's tempo, beat, can help me move, like help me move my body.
Right.
So it's not uncommon, for me to go the first like 30, 35 minutes in a workout on a podcast. And then as I'm about to set my timer, and actually hit it really hard, I'll just move over to music because I know I'm not going to pay attention.
Hmm.
The other days where I stick and stay on podcast, more than likely I'm re-listening to that podcast later in the day on my drive in or my drive home because I'm recognizing, I missed a lot of pieces from it.
Hmm.
So again, I sorry for the tangent, but
No, no, it's my fault.
there's some more context.
I just got really excited, and I so appreciate that because that'll help me, most definitely. But I have, just like Tom Hopkins, been using my car as a classroom, complete
There we go.
classroom. So that's cool.
I do that
Um,
too.
but moving into this truth number three that I call it, I say faith becomes real when life gets unfair. And what I mean by that is, for the listener and for you, Matt, faith becomes essential when life doesn't go your way. And for this, I'd love to share just a quick personal narrative. Coming out of school, I decided to do a year of service in Montana, right? We know that. If you've listened to a couple episodes to this point. And what I didn't realize about this organization was that it was very political. And I was involved with a group of people that often liked to share their beliefs. And I was accustomed to spending my time with other individuals that didn't talk about politics because we weren't interested in creating any kind of a divide. And I didn't appreciate hearing other people, say, oh, those people are the worst, these people are the worst. And because of all that, I was faced with some adversity. But through some prayer, I was able to sit back and say, you know what? Because I've never experienced these kind of people before who seem to be nagging on others, I can be fascinated by them instead and question, right? Let go of any kind of bias or judgment I may have towards them and just kind of sit there and try to understand them and think, why does this person think that way? Why does this person, even if they have no care in the world as to what I think, I can
Hmm.
still just benefit from asking them questions and listening. And that was very important for me to understand. Humbling for sure, because when you're so interested in somebody and they don't necessarily care about what you think, it's humbling, but still there's value in that.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah, it's like when you think back upon that, it's like God didn't change that situation for you, but it changed like who you were, gave you a
right.
completely different mindset, gave you a different line of questioning, to be able to ask, stay curious, and see where you could, obtain value.
Yeah,
And that's like the purpose of faith.
totally.
It's
Totally.
not to, again, wish your will upon, changing an external circumstance, or praying that this, specific event happens, in one's life. It's about obtaining, the wisdom, necessary, right? Like
Mhm. Yeah.
knowledge in itself is power. So it's
Totally.
like, right, like please just fill me with wisdom to be able to ask the right questions, to be able to stay curious. I love that story. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I think you learn an awful lot about yourself and about the world around you when you're constantly around people that you might think differently from you. Because the reality is that so many people do think differently from you. It doesn't
Right.
matter what you think.
Right. I
So,
love the broader perspective too. It definitely makes me think from time to time. I love those, that concept of like strongly held beliefs, loosely held, something like that. Strong beliefs, loosely held. I think that's the phrase. Strong beliefs, loosely held. I love that.
yeah,
Like you're deeply convicted, but you're willing to think dialectically,
right.
which is an interesting word, right? To be able to view the same situation from multiple perspectives and to be
Yeah,
able to come to truth, and honesty based upon the multiple perspectives. It's kind of like, straw manning, in like an argument. So like I love that concept in general.
yeah. And it makes me think real briefly. It makes me think of how I answered a question my friend Arthur was asking me. He's like, so what's work like for you? And I said, oh, it's great. You you would love he'd love my friend Matt. And one of the best things about him is if you're explaining something to him that he knows a lot about, he won't pause you or be like, yeah, right, for sure, for sure. But he'll listen instead just to see if there's one small detail he didn't know. And I think that's incredibly beneficial, not only to you, but to other people who get to share. Um,
Well,
because you're
it came
giving,
from it came from Warren Buffett. I mean, kind of like a weird thing, but he was like, never not read the footnotes.
yeah,
It's like if you're going to read, right, like a 10K, if you're going to read 100 plus pages, but you're going to skip over the footnotes, like that's where all the valuable information is buried. And it's like, how do I not know that you're not going to give me one of these footnotes,
yeah,
right? Like the world, the knowledge is just so deep. There's
yeah,
just so much we don't know.
right,
And to recognize you don't know what you don't know is one of those things that, I wish I was taught, when I was younger, to
yeah,
not take this like pompous, arrogant, type view towards, being a know-it-all.
yeah,
And again, listening twice as much as you talk.
most definitely. We'll continue to work on that for the rest of our lives, but we're
Yes.
we're doing well. Um, And one other thing I would love to get your take on, Matt, is this the idea that, and you probably have a better understanding than I, but I kind of believe that love isn't necessarily enough, throughout my years, but it's still worth it. And what I mean by that is love needs structure. And we're getting a little deep here, listener, but
Hmm.
it needs structure such as commitment. You need structure such as trust, respect, boundaries, action, so love in and of itself is not enough. But when you tie all of those other pieces together, it is. And despite that, it's still worth it. So this we're talking about this idea that you have to focus on what it means to stay soft, if you will, when life tempts you to be hard. I think about this in mentors that I've witnessed, right? If somebody that they're teaching someone to do something, they don't understand it and they're not quick to get it. I've seen people visibly take a step back and say, it's okay. This person has other skill sets than I do, so I'm going to be
Hmm.
patient and wonder how can I go about teaching this person another way so that they get the most out of it. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of those lessons for me will have come from being a parent, so as a direct follow-up from Father's Day, right? With your children, you generally have a choice as to how you're going to respond, right? I could be mellow, I could be calm, I could be patient, or I can move towards, anger, I can move towards hate, I can move towards frustration. And again, it's just a choice. But one effectively has to play chess in their own mind. If I respond in this fashion, what will the outcome be to this response? And it's thinking before we act, thinking before we speak, gaining that emotional intelligence, asking oneself, like, okay, if I respond in this manner, what do I think the likely response back to what I say will be?
right. Right. That's so funny you say that. I've been trying to do more of that. Like,
But
say
it's like,
something.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like how many of those sayings are there where it's, like like sugar's going to get you further than, like vinegar, how many of those sayings are there where obviously you want to be sweet?
right.
Like
Or light rain does a better job of parenting than thunder.
for sure, 100%,
Yeah,
right? 100%. And it's, just wild to see how it's not only applicable with children, but we're all like grown children out in this world, and we all still react to the same type of stimuli and the same type of response to like constructive criticism.
Mhm.
So, like people can learn, right? There's a right way and a wrong way to deliver criticism.
Yeah,
Again, I could be nice or I could be kind. It's a
right.
choice that I ultimately make.
Spoiler alert, listener, you want to be kind. That's the better option there,
You always want to be kind,
right?
even if it inevitably will hurt someone's feelings, because many times it's what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And I don't know about you, Will, but like I want relationships where people are willing to tell me what I need to hear,
Right,
not what I want to hear.
right,
That's how we all improve,
mhm,
like, but I'm open to constructive criticism. Please help me get better, right?
right.
Like I want that. I'm inviting it. That's what I want.
Yeah. And you mentioned sugar. It's like sugarcoating is being nice. And it's basically leading you down on a wrong path because you still think that whatever you're thinking is correct when I could have been kind and told you, no, it's not
Will,
correct.
do I want any food put in my body that has been coated in sugar?
No. Uh,
So why
unless
would you
I've,
verb unless
I
what? Give me
was
something. What? Get what? Chocolate covered strawberry?
So
Something
Matt
like
Matt likes we have these green winds at the office sometimes. He doesn't like because it's circles and it's like too much. So I learned that. So I chuck him on the ground and I was like, Matt, you want one? So
yeah, 5 grams of sugar too much in one mint, but like a half gram, like sure, okay, we can work with that. But it's the same thing. Like sugar is poison to the human body. Why am I going to try to sugarcoat something and give it to you? Why am
yeah.
I going to try to wrap something that is intended to help you with something that's first going to hurt you? Right? It's like I'm not going to sugarcoat anything.
Mhm.
Like, right, I care about you. I want the best for you. So why wouldn't I talk to you like how I would want to be spoken to? And
Right.
that goes back to the golden rule, right? Doing unto others as you want done to yourself.
Yeah.
So, like, why aren't we all treating others how we would like to be treated?
I think it's
It's
because a
like,
lot of us are terrified of failure. You were saying though, sorry to interrupt.
No, I mean, I guess that's true. And a lot of us are afraid of criticism, right? Like
Hmm.
we don't want to be told that we're not doing a good job.
Right.
But if you could be told how to improve while being told that you're not doing a good job, like you wouldn't want that. And that's kind of the
I
difference
would.
between like, nice and kind.
Hmm. But by the way, in the last couple episodes, I mentioned Brandon Jacobs. Wrong.
Bradley.
Brad Jacobs. Gosh. But I listened to that again, this episode he was doing with another individual, and he mentioned some beautiful idea that humans are infallible beings and
Hmm.
failure is expected. So he was talking about one of his mentors who recently passed, and he was like, this individual told me a long time ago that failure is expected, and that the better you can be at accepting it and moving on as fast as possible, the better off you will be. So failure
Yeah.
is it's not, it's just feedback.
Yeah.
So I wrote
I,
that down.
I just, it just reminds me like the importance of practicing acceptance,
Yeah.
amongst so many different things. Like you referenced Alex Hormozy earlier today, and I remember him talking about, a cat that he had. It had only lived till 4 months. It passed away. He was very sad. And he just had to reframe things in his mind. And he reframed them to, most kittens only live like 10 days. It's like how lucky, how grateful, how fortunate am I, to have gotten, 4 months, right? Like with this, with this little kitten. So it was just like a complete reframe in the mind. And so frequently that's what we have to do.
Yeah. I didn't know that about Alex, but that's a wonderful way to reframe.
Yeah, complete reframe.
Now, following up here, I do want to share one question with you, Matt. Do you believe that most people are good?
I do. Yeah, I think there's, roughly 2% of the population that are, under the control of the devil and, they're a-holes and shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
That's 2% of the population. But in general, I think 98% of the world is good-hearted,
Yeah.
wants the best for others.
I believe that too. Not just because I think it was Kenny Chesney or somebody like that said that in a song, but most people definitely are good. And um, kindness exists everywhere. And the reason I wanted to bring this up to you is because I haven't told you one of the most wonderful stories I've ever experienced. So this was 2 years ago, and it explains that kindness truly does exist everywhere. I'm on a train going to Rabat, Morocco from Ifrane up in the mountains, and I have a hostel reservation for booking.com. So I get to the train station, I go to get a taxi, and I call the hostel to make sure everything's all good. The person answers the phone. It's a Frenchman. He's like, "What? Hostel? No, I don't know what you're talking about." And I go, "Oh, geez." So it's a fake hostel, and I
Mm.
go, "Well, what am I gonna do? It's almost midnight on a Tuesday, I think it was in Morocco." Um, and so I went to the concierge at the train station and I was like, hey man, I'm using my translator. Any chance you can help me find a hostel? I just booked one with booking.com and it's fake. He's like, you're not gonna find anything here. On a like no shot.
Hmm.
And so this guy goes, but you could stay at my apartment. Train station concierge, manager of the
No
place.
way.
I go,
Wow.
you don't know me. Like, what do you mean I can stay with you? He goes, I don't know. You seem like in broken English. He's like, I don't know. You seem like a nice person who could use, somebody to help him out. So he said, if you'd like, you could wait for me to finish my shift. I'll be done in 2 hours. You can hang out in my office and then we can take the train to my apartment. I'd never met this guy before in my life. And I was like,
Wow.
this is insane. But the guy really, we cooked dinner that night, went to his apartment, woke up the next morning, and I, you hopped on a flight. That's
Incredible.
that.
That's incredible. That's wild.
Most people are good. And if I believe that if you're nice, people are ultimately receptive to you and they want to help you out.
Yeah,
So,
I'm 100% in the trust first.
yeah,
And it's my trust that you have to lose. So it's yours, but it's yours to lose.
definitely.
And it served me well.
Definitely. It's yours to lose. Might have to quote that um, on social media or whatever. But any closing remarks from that? Like, is there anybody out there that maybe they're working a job right now and they don't love it, but they don't feel like finding something else? Is there something that you wish that you wish you knew earlier for somebody like that?
Yeah, someone like that, strikes me as someone who, perhaps may view, life like they're a bit of a victim, to like circumstances. They're trapped. They don't know what specifically to do to be able to, get out of it. And, I don't think that should necessarily be the mentality. However, for someone who is experiencing, a bit of depression like that, what they need is knowledge because it tells me that they perceive only one pathway to exist in terms of moving forward. And they haven't gained the knowledge necessary to understand what type of opportunities are truly out there, that can be gained simply through education. And that education can be gained through, Google, through ChatGPT, through YouTube videos, all for free at no cost to, whoever it is that's, currently seeking knowledge. So I look at, someone who's experiencing, a bout of depression just needs education. They just need knowledge to be able to understand the different doors that will open in the future, coupled with faith. And then on top of that, if someone's experiencing a great deal of anxiety, it's more than likely because they have, unmade decisions that need to be made. So someone with, excuse me, someone with a, a huge, tremendous to-do list. I would not be surprised, if they're very anxious, like navigating through the world, just as like a very anxious type of person, with all these loose ends that need to be, completely, tied up.
Right.
So, if someone's experiencing, a bout of depression, they're not really happy, with their position in life, the role that they have, they need to seek knowledge. They need to gain education. Like I look at like Twitter X, as the ability to micro learn, in the evening, so I think social media in some capacities can be used for the greater good, not just, showing off what one doesn't really have to make their friends believe that they actually, have it. But like on X or Twitter, again, you can just begin following, people that, are in an industry that you want to join into. And, again, you can learn, it's micro learning or pick up a book or, grab a Forbes magazine and begin reading, just gaining knowledge, in terms of how people were able to accomplish like tremendous lives out of nothing to be here in the United States, to be alive in this world alone. Like you have won the lottery with the internet, with artificial intelligence and technological advancements. Like there's never been a greater time to be alive ever. And also think even at the lowest level of income in the United States, we still live like 100 times better than that of like Louis the 13th from hundreds of years ago. I mean, to even take a warm shower, Will, would have required something like a dozen servants in the past to get water in buckets to bring them to you and then to heat them up like over fire, right? Like it's crazy to think about just the basics of running water, of toilets, of plumbing, right? Again, a hot shower, but let
Yeah.
alone like transportation and internet and having ChatGPT in my pocket,
Right.
right? It's just like now has been the greatest time to be alive. So for anyone who's experiencing, that bout of depression, anxiety, or has fear, about what the future holds for themselves, it's like there's never been a greater time. The
Wow.
ability to develop skills, the barrier has never been as low like as it has been today. In addition, lastly, the world has become tremendously lazy with artificial intelligence. Tremendously lazy. Very few people are willing to do the work, which just represents, again, an opportunity for those that are.
Hmm.
So I see nothing but, I'm just nothing but excited about the future.
Yeah. Yeah, for the listener, if that doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what will. Good Lord, I'm ready to go run a marathon or something like that.
Let's go.
Get into those middle miles. Um, Quote of the day, silly me, forgot to do it last time, but listener, faith is the evidence of things not seen, and adulthood is where that gets tested. Inspired by Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Matt and I are wrapping up today, but if you're feeling so inclined, you're more than welcome to reach out to me at will@silenceservicepodcast.com and answer this question. What's one thing you've had to learn the hard way? You're welcome to email or DM on Instagram or Twitter at silent SBC pod. Uh, and we'd love to feature you in a few future episodes. So be looking forward to that. Also, check out the YouTube, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode if you feel like it might touch somebody. Um, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks so much.